You can reverse a dying plant, but if you're not managing how often you're actually watering your indoor plants, your roots will just start rotting over and over again. 3 things. In this video, I'll show you how to cure root rot, tell you why it happens, and how to prevent it. You've removed your plant from soil to inspect the roots, and you've noticed that some of the roots are turning black, they'll pull apart easily, or the stem is soft. Cut off as much of the rotting tissue as possible. Keep cutting away until the roots that you can see are firm and you don't see any more black tips. If you see rot in the stem of the plant, you need to keep cutting this back as well. After you cut away rotting stem further and further up the plant, check the open tissue to make sure that you're in the clear. From here, your job is to disinfect the exposed tissue. You should soak your plant in a hydrogen peroxide and water mixture. 1 part hydrogen peroxide, 6 parts water, and soak for about 20 to 30 minutes. Hydrogen peroxide sold over the counter is generally a 3% concentration. The next step is to use an antifungal treatment. You're looking for a copper or sulfur-based fungicide. Most fungicidal sprays that you can buy are targeted to attack a specific leaf disease. For example, a popular spray in Canada is Safer's 3-in-1 garden spray. While it says it specifically targets powdery mildew and rust fungus, the important thing is that it's sulfur-based, and this will also help with root rot. They also sell horticultural copper or sulfur powder. On the bottle, it will tell you exactly what concentration you're supposed to mix with water. Please read the instructions because if your concentrations are too high, you will end up harming your plant. Spray your roots and the exposed stem of the plant. You can also use these sprays as a leaf spray. Your leaves absorb both copper and sulfur, but it is absolutely imperative that you read the instructions on the bottle. Something your bottle might tell you is the frequency that you're allowed to spray your leaves. For example, it might say not to spray more than 1 time per week for ornamental tropical houseplants. You should also avoid using foliage sprays when the sun is up or your grow lights are on. You should also avoid using these sprays when it's too hot in your environment, so make sure it's after dark or below 75 Fahrenheit or 24 Celsius. If not, you may end up burning your leaves. After you've sprayed your plants with antifungals, put it immediately in your growing medium. Your growing medium must have great access to oxygen. Here are some mediums that I suggest. Water propagation with an oxygen bubbler. Sphagnum moss with tree fern fiber. A small plastic cup with holes in the bottom is a great choice. You'll want your medium to be consistently moist but not waterlogged. You can also use aquarium soil. Use a closed plastic cup with the water level just barely visible at the bottom. Avoid having your aquarium soil turn gray. This is dry, so make sure it's consistently dark. Having these high oxygen environments are really helpful because root rot causing pathogens thrive in low oxygen environments. Use small clear containers so that you can easily monitor how your roots are progressing. On larger plants, you can consider taking a top cutting of your infected plant. Because these rot-causing pathogens start in the soil and move their way up your plant, taking a top cutting might ensure that you have a piece of your plant that has lower amounts of these pathogens. On plants that have aerial roots, particularly aroids like monsteras and philodendrons, you can submerge their roots but leave the exposed parts of the stem above water. By using rubber bands or other materials, you may be able to suspend the plant over your rooting medium so that only the roots are submerged. Expose your plant to more light. Light is the key factor in plants' health, and giving them more light will help them recover faster. You should use a light meter to see if you're actually giving your plant more light in its new spot. If you continue to see your roots or the stem of your plant turning black, just repeat the process of cutting away the diseased tissue, retreat it with hydrogen peroxide and fungicides. Discard your old propagation materials and try again. After you've cut away a lot of the roots of your plant, you'll probably notice that your lower foliage is starting to die off. Your plant needs roots to sustain the amount of foliage it has, so if you cut away a lot of your roots, your leaves are also going to drop. Your plant's roots that are already not healthy is not going to be able to take up all of the water that it needs to distribute to all of the leaves, foliage, and the stem of the plant. It's better that you start removing lower foliage now or just take a lot of cuttings from your plant. Continue to grow out your roots until you can see significant root development, then you can go back to your original soil potting medium. Root rot happens because your plant is in a low oxygen environment. Some air pockets you can see if you have a well-draining potting mix, and all soil has microscopic air pockets. Roots need oxygen to live, and they absorb oxygen through their root hairs. That's these specialized cells on their roots. When you water your soil, that actually pushes oxygen and air out of your soil. And then you're left with wet, compacted soil that lacks oxygen. In this low oxygen environment, root-causing bacteria, fungus, and pathogens, they start to thrive. Now, these pathogens are everywhere in our environment, but generally, they're not in high enough numbers to actually harm your plant, unless you give them the perfect environment. And I'm sure you figured it out by now, but they love environments that lack oxygen. So if your soil stays too wet for too long, creating that low oxygen environment, that's when you get root rot. These rot-causing pathogens attack your roots, attack your stem, and eventually they kill your plant. The best ways to prevent root rot is to make sure that you have great lighting. With more light, your roots absorb water faster. Your plant dries out, oxygen levels stay high, and then you can water your plant again. Now you have a faster wet and dry cycle, and for most houseplants, this is what you want. So again, you need to use a light meter to ensure that your plant has the appropriate amount of light for its specific species. Always ensure that you have clean tools when cutting your plants. You can use rubbing alcohol to disinfect your knives, your shears, whatever you're using to cut your plant. Make sure that you do not mist your plants. Misting does not increase humidity, but what it does do is it closes the stomata of the leaves, making sure that your leaves can't photosynthesize, and it gives you a higher chance of getting fungal infections. Make sure to discard the dead leaves that fall into your soil. We are not turning our indoor plants into living compost piles. Also, that is not how composting works. Removing dead leaves will decrease the chances of you getting fungal issues. When rehabilitating your rotting cuttings, make sure that they are separated from each other and from your healthy plants. You need to treat every plant like rot-causing pathogens can jump from one plant to another through physical contact. Always ensure that there's no standing water in your plant collection. Remember to discard leftover water in cache trays and just keep a clean environment. Always take cuttings from healthy plants, don't buy from the clearance rack, and don't try to rescue plants like I'm gonna try to rescue a Nintendo Switch from Best Buy. Taking on plants that are already unhealthy increases the likelihood of you bringing pathogens into your home. The truth is, once a significant amount of root rot gets into your plant, it is very, very challenging to get rid of it. Prevention is the best way to avoid root rot, and if it's bad enough, there's no shame in just throwing out a plant. Managing your time and your own personal stress levels should be your highest priority. And remember, since light is the key to healthy plants, you can always consider getting some grow lights on a timer. Artificial lighting is just as good as sunlight, and it's more reliable. If you don't want to dig up your plant just yet to see if your roots are actually rotting, please consider joining our community Discord. Our members can usually figure out exactly what's wrong with your plant after a couple of questions and a bit more context. And you can check out this video here to see if you're actually watering your plants correctly.